So, as
I
this is the spoiler section now, you've been warned 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We could just kind of button and say, hey, you know what I mean? This scene here, remember this scene? I didn't really like this scene or this moment or whatever it is, right?
there is
Because, yeah.
there's a scene I think a lot of people have been alluding to that I want to address and ask what everyone's thoughts were on. Specifically for me, the part where the movie begins and it starts like the very first film, and then
Right.
all of a sudden you get these characters going, "Oh yeah, this is like how it happened the last time," and
Right.
then you're like,
Mm.
wait a minute," and then like it becomes these characters watching what's going on, and then
Right.
like it plays out, but then differently, and then they interrupt it, and it's
Right.
thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's actually what I wanted to start off with, to be honest, right? But I will say though, just in terms of just getting us back into the world of the Matrix, I do like the title credits. Well, I should say the
This
title of the film, particularly when you see resurrections and you see the code actually like rising up from the bottom of the screen. I thought I was like, okay,
Yes.
that's smart, that's clever. I like
yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right, so that whole opening sequence is right part of the plot, and it make perfect sense. They explain it later, right? Where
Oh yeah.
what it is, it's what it is. Its purpose is to grow a digital sentience that is based off of Morpheus and Agent Smith, and
Yeah.
that's he create new Morpheus. And this is designed by Neo in his game to escape the real Matrix. So it's a nice little rigmarole trap and plan, and then it's the meta commentary and narrative played in the conceit of the narrative itself. Love it.
Right.
Simple idea, and they make it work because they had Bugs, be the one to find Morpheus and then use Morpheus to break him out now. And what it plays with the whole studio note of wanting the prequel Matrix thing now. Because remember, they wanted Michael B. Jordan to play a young Morpheus. And like this.
Oh
they-
yeah.
Oh,
they cheese with
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
And so I was like, that's how I was reading that whole scene. I was like, oh shit, that's where they're going with it. And then they had Yahya Abdul-Mateen be absolutely hilarious with it. So he's more
Yeah.
like a kind of a weird pimp,
Yeah.
kind of weirdo character.
Oh, I
kind of
love
thing.
that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was
I-
funny and it works.
I didn't like that. I was like, yeah, I like Yaya as an actor, but
Right.
like the way when they finally plug Neo into the Matrix and like, well, they plug him into the construct and you see Yaya's Morpheus like sitting up
goofing
in
about.
the construct and he dancing around. I was like,
Yeah.
what the hell is going on?
Exactly, because he's not
This
he's
isn't
not
Florence
Morpheus.
This
Yeah,
is
it's not Morpheus. That's the whole point. He's not supposed to be Morpheus. He's not supposed to be played seriously.
Hmm.
You know what they do well with this. This is somebody brought up this. The whole history repeats itself. First it's tragedy, then it's farce. That's
Yeah.
what it was going. That's how I read that.
Yes.
Yeah, and they play with that premise really well. And what I was digging with it is the whole the Yaya character now is just when it come later when he could exist in the outside state with this I forget what you call it, magnetic balls kind of thing. Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I'll
Like,
talk
yeah.
about that too. Yeah.
Cool premise. They make it work. Yeah, Morpheus is not Morpheus. It's not the same Morpheus. I call him modal Morpheus because that's basically what he was. It was a model they created. Well, Neo created just to create this thing to break him out. It's just a key. But he
Right.
ended up being a person on his own. They should. I don't know if he would have had an arc one way or the other, but it still works for me, and I enjoy all of that.
Well, for
Right.
me, I like that opening sequence and like the way it gets kind of interrupted because it very much sets the expectation, and it kind of sets like it's one of the first sequences that gives you the kind of like look into like Lana's creative process, trying to even think where to begin with making a new Matrix movie. Because like one of the things that the film is very upfront about is how do you follow up when you have made something that is considered like revolutionary and groundbreaking, right? Like how do you create something to like follow that up? And then so like kind of starting the film with we're not like literally having new characters interrupt what is essentially like a complete recreation of the original movie.
Yeah, exactly. They do basically the audience perspective premise, fans in the world again because they play Bugs and all the other characters again. We mentioned this with Hawkeye, the concept of the ascended fangirl now. What would it be like to live in this universe? And this is your history, but there are also pop culture artifacts within the world. If you think about it. Right, and we see a lot of characters like that. I never met a legend. I don't know how to deal with legends, how to deal with this going forward, how to take it seriously. And then where again, this was again 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. You could have fit this out in more episodes. But Niobe being the skeptic character, being the leader for the future, works because she never believed in Neo. She never believed in anyone. The idea was always a trap and it was always bullshit. And they make it work as a conceit in this now. It's like, yeah, Neo himself kind of never believed in anyone, if you think about it. We see that in the second and third films. Mm-hmm. But again, it's that same Baudrillard, how to, the system traps you. And then when they explain what the analyst was doing and why he was doing, again, I felt he was hamming it up too much, a little too much tell, don't show, monologuing villain stuff. But again, I like the concept.
Yeah. I like the concept of the analyst as being like this corrupted version of the architect. I like this. I like
just another guy. No, basically he's a young upstart, right? That's what he is. Because he said that he said the last guy only cared about numbers and so and so. And he just basically had to climb up the corporate ladder now, effectively, of the machine world. Just to say, I'm making the Matrix even better and more efficient, and here's why.
Well, that's what I love about him as a villain. Like, he feels like, because like they mentioned at one point, like the whole conceit is like any computer program,
right?
It like eventually you have to have an update, like a new update, and so it's like,
right?
How does an updated Matrix continue to like ensnare its, like, how does an updated Matrix keep people sleeping? And I was thinking, and it was wild because like the best way I could describe the analyst is that he kind of functions almost like the YouTube algorithm. Like, that's the best way I could describe the analyst.
He's the asshole corporate upstart.
Yes.
To basically say, well, I need to do this 10 times better somehow, but you can't. Like, sorry, you're dealing with history. And he himself is, to me, he was also a stand-in for WB, like some WB exec who want to do, Matrix in the future. Like, again, it's all that meta commentary onto meta commentary stuff. That's why it would work. Yeah,
and I also like in the when the police started to break into the offices, and he basically when Smith was revealed and he was gonna shoot Neo in the head, and it's like the analyst basically did the rewind, and he basically playing with his mind. It's like that was a good call on like how the Matrix could affect your mental health. And
right.
Like,
that was there's a lot of it.
There's waking up, and he would just wake up in his room. You remember?
Yeah.
And he would just like when his mouth closed in the first one, and he just woke up in his bed.
Right.
It was like a callback to that for me.
Yeah, exactly.
But
that was the conceit. Yeah, that was the conceit the analyst was doing. He's like, yeah, look, I just need to gaslight Neo as much. And then when they explain, well, why he was doing it this way is that, again, corporate profits. Like, it's just, it's clearly less stable. He's not as much of the artisan that the architect was. He's not as intelligent as what the Oracle was in terms of solving the problem. He just needed as much energy as possible. It's very late stage capitalism conceit right there. Because he clearly made an inferior version of the Matrix compared to what the architect did. Right? It's less stable. It's super easy. Like, Neo was breaking out constantly. That was the whole point. He keep fucking it up, In fact, bringing back an old anomaly to solve the problem is an incredibly stupid move, if you think about it. And they address that in the storytelling. Like, they say, they run out of power and the machines was fighting amongst themselves because they just get greedy on energy. Like, this energy. They're still using the dumb energy conceit, which I hate, but whatever. But they play with that as the conceit is like, the machines was fighting amongst themselves. And they did something which I felt they should have explored. And they explored it in the third film. And explored it a little bit in this film, but I hated that they didn't touch upon it enough. The idea of which side is our side and their side. I love that.
Yes.
And they didn't do that because we get to see machines that are well, sympathetic.
Friendly.
And we see some of that in the Animatrix, right? Like, we saw some of that in the Animatrix, where you could convert machines to the good side, to the human side. But no, the whole point is that, the machines, a lot of the machines are the victims in all of the situation as well, right? It's not just human versus machine.
Oh yeah, well that was one of my favorite parts of the sequels. Is honestly the introduction that like not all the sentient programs are inherently. I feel like one of my criticisms of the original film is that it kind of ends up reading as this machine's bad triumph of the human spirit. Like, no, but
exactly, because the first film has a very insidious undertone to it that the second films try to address. In my opinion, at least that's how I see they do. Which is,
I would agree with
look. We could burn down the system, man. Fuck everybody else. That bullshit. And yes, because the first film works so well as a great adolescent story, Like, let us be clear.
does.
It taps into the adolescent mind very well. But that could go in a very dark direction. And that could be, basically, could turn into a fight club, right? Like, that's what it could happen. And it also gets into, well, let us be clear, there's a lot of, like, alt-right Trump politics bullshit going on. Like,
Yes!
the idea that, well, two things. One, I love the idea of, this is how I saw it. Again, this is me reading it. This is my read and my lens and subtext. But the idea of they replace the police and the agents into the concept of everyone is an agent now. If you think about it, that's a lot of white America police shooting. Well, I could just take up a gun myself kind of bullshit now.
Right.
I interpret it like that as the last 4 years of politics. And basically the good guys can be like, well, I don't know how we're going to deal with this. We can't believe we fucked this up. I thought we solved the problem. And that kind of complacency is what destroyed us. Because that's what they addressed with Morpheus. The reason why Morpheus failed as a leader is because, he thought Neo was the savior and they could never undo what he did. And like, no, that is not the situation at all. He fell victim to that false narrative now. And because Neo never spoke to Morpheus properly about, what the architect told him, Morpheus still fall for the bullshit now, at least a certain type of bullshit. And they address that really well in it. That's why Niobe works as a leader, because she never believed the bullshit. She never get trapped now. And her what she wanted to do with Io and everything like that, I really liked it. But she also was too wrong. I like what they do with that. Again, 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. It's a real shame that they couldn't get this to flesh this out better now.
Right.
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Well, okay. Well, those are great thoughts, guys. I was loving all that, right? It was really, really, really. No, it's just really insightful, right? But just touching on what Ricardo was saying about 10 pounds of shit. I do agree though, because I feel like just the IO sections of the films itself, right, involving Niobe, that should have been like like if we were looking at this as a limited series, this could have just been like just a 2-3 episodes, and then it will lead into like what the big climax would be now. I felt like okay, like she was just there and she just kind of explained what went on. Okay, Morpheus died, okay, and all that kind of stuff, and the machines, and there's a plot that goes on, which I'll get into. But after that plot takes place, it just kind of stops, you know what I mean? And I just felt like it was just introducing all these characters, giving them moments, but they don't ever follow back on it. So like, okay, whatever happened to Niobe and Io, like we just kind of leave them there. Okay.
Yeah,
I felt it even more now with the crew, with the new crew that we introduced with. And I like the fact that
they're very underrated.
I thought I was loving all of them.
One sec. I do like the fact that they are fanboys and fangirls, right? But I felt like we didn't get enough of them. Like we saw them a couple of times during some of the action scenes in the second and third act. But after that, we like compared to the first movie, we don't really know anything about them other than we just kind of grew up on learning about Neo and what he did, and all that stuff. Yeah. What?
So no, last
is it explained how they get out of the Matrix this time? Because I know, like in the previous movies, they use the phones. Is it through mirrors now?
Exactly. Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's a great a conceit as well. This whole Alice in Wonderland mirrors and doors thing now, right? Because they clearly evolved the tech from how to escape from the Matrix. In the first film.
Which of course leads to some of as far as like I know we were saying earlier that some of the action scenes weren't compared to the original films. But for me, the few action scenes that actually did stand out were the ones where they ended up utilizing that whole mirrors and doors idea. Right, then I'm like, okay, now we're back in the Matrix. Now we're like rewriting how to do action sequences. Because especially that one thing where it's a doorway that's like on the floor or whatever, and like the character goes through it and the camera spins because now they're in like a different...
Yeah, exactly.
That.
So we see all of that tech in the second film where we call him Seraph the Oracle. Seraph the Oracle and Keymaker was bouncing the backlogs of it. The humans didn't understand that until they saw that, and then they clearly took that information and ran with it with the whole mirrors and doors stuff and bounced around. And I love that. All the evolution stuff. It has an idea in this that I had for my write-up for what I did. I had my own fan write-up for what I did, what a Matrix sequel would have been. The idea of bringing information from the Matrix into the real world, the strawberry. Loved it. Right?
That moment. Okay.
Small thing, you could tell now you'll be really trying to build something now. So build something interesting, The relationship between her and the machines, isn't it? It's us and them to build something in the future. I love all of that.
Not us versus them, which is like...
us and them.
Exactly.
Because my
Alright.
personal favorite part of Revolutions, and my last point, and I'll go stop. And I'll give my written decimal. My personal favorite part of Revolutions is with Sati's dad and Neo, when they were talking to Neo, and they just talk about the premise of love. And even Neo kind of get called out for being a bit of a prejudice, kind of a bigot now. He's like, what, love? What does machines have to do with love? And the father was like, no, this is love is just a word. This is what you have to think about it in that way. So even Neo still couldn't free his mind from something like that now. And they made it, and that's why I think Lana was doubling down within this one now about this kind of universalized agape, if you want to, if you know that term, right? And they make it. I thought they made it work. Like that's a lot of this works. And again, 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag, and that's the frustrating part about this, unfortunately. But that's it.
I just want to mention
ratings and then
well, all right. Give the rating. Give the rating.
Yeah, ratings. 7 out of 10, closer to 8. Really, because everything that's stuck into a small space and you cannot tell a proper story in 2.5 hours or however long this was. That is me. 7 out of 10, closer to 8 than a 6, but it's a real unfortunate shame that we couldn't get a 6 to 8 episode series run from this. However, moving on.
Yeah, you're really charitable with this film though, but I mean it's understandable. Right? No, seriously, it's understandable, right? But I'll get to my rating later on, right? As you mentioned, fight scenes now. I missed seeing you and Wu Ping's choreography, man. I was looking in the credits and God damn it, his name was not there. I was like, why? You know what I mean? So yeah, the fights just didn't work for me. They just felt very, very reminiscent of what we saw before. Case in point, where in the training room, right, with new Morpheus, Morpheus 2.0 or whatever, and Neo, right? I want to mention too, like in the beginning where Morpheus, or at least the character Morpheus, thought he was Smith. And I felt like in that fight scene with them, if you notice how brutal he was moving towards him, like I felt like this was something that Agent Smith would do, where you just keep like pummeling. Like if you notice, like in the real world, you see like Neo was bleeding out of the mouth, you know what I mean? Which is a thing that when Neo fought Smith for the first time in that train station, that was the same thing that was happening. Blood was coming out of his mouth, you know what I mean? But I felt like how I interpreted it was just something that he couldn't like just something that he wasn't in control of. Like he was just doing it because in his head is like, all right, I'm Morpheus. I have to push this guy to be great, but I don't really know how to do it. Because if you notice, like, Morpheus is kind of cool towards him now, you know what I mean? But in this one, it's just like, no, I'm like gonna beat the shit out of you just for you to understand what's really important here. Is like, it's for Trinity, fight for her and all that kind of stuff now. Right. But for me though, all right, like I saw it in the trailers, okay, fine, but this whole force field powers that Neo have just felt cheap. It just felt uninspired. It's like, all right, we can't do the whole stopping bullets thing again. We seen the flying stuff already. What else we could do? Okay, how about force fields? All right, okay. At the first time, it looked like an invisible Hadouken. That was kind of cool.
Well, it was. To me, it was just a natural evolution. I thought it was just a natural evolution of his telekinetic powers. We know he's telekinetic. Like we see him use telekinesis all the time. We see him pull the size. We see him stop the bullets. So it wasn't too far fetched. The problem is that they kind of overuse it and they get real old real fast. So,
that's the problem.
The final
goddamn much.
The final action scene when they're driving through and he's using it a lot. Then that was when I was like really tired of it. I was like, okay, yeah, we're done. I'm like, because like when they're driving through on the motorbike and he's like force pushing the like zombie mode agents away. It was like, oh, okay, yeah.
I'll get to that before
I'm done with this at that point.
I do like how they established Thomas Anderson in this quote-unquote real world. There were a few moments like in that action scene at the workplace, which I absolutely enjoyed. Though this is where it kind of it resembles where Morpheus contacts Neo for the first time in his workplace back in the first film, but it just leads to this full-out shootout, right? I felt like leading up to it, because we have to talk about Keanu's acting range here. Not as much far as all that. Like, it's not perfect, right? But still, I felt that there were moments, particularly in the bathroom scene where Morpheus confronts him for the first time, where the acting just didn't land, boy. It's just like, leave me alone. Like, I can't believe this. This can't be true. And it's just like, come on. Go a little further. But I know it's acting range, right? Whatever, right? But yeah, I should say the central action scene that takes place where you're seeing this is when you fight Smith now, and you're seeing exiles now. I felt like the exiles themselves, because I know they're trying to go for what you saw in Reloaded, but unlike Reloaded, these guys look like just cosplay performers. They just dress up like just weird.
Matthew. I need to mention this. When this character comes out, you know who I thought he was? I thought he was the train man at first.
Me too.
I thought he was the train man.
Yeah, again, not a bad idea. When they bring back in,
that's the Merovingian.
yes, the
It is the Merovingian.
I was like, what?
By the way, guys, guys. By the way, let's get this out of the way. As far as in terms of just bringing back new characters, they did. Oh boy, the Merovingian, the dirtiest way. And he's not the most likable character in the world, right? But I like his causality and the whole belief is that I can just do whatever I want to get away with it because it doesn't even matter. I like that. Like he's an asshole all that stuff. But how they do here in this boy,
didn't care.
To watch boy. And he was just doing all this dumb meta stuff and this new generation and with Facebook and all these things and social media is like, dog, what are you doing? What
Yes.
But that makes sense. Yeah. But that makes sense to me. They fuck up his life effectively because like he was living big and all he had to do is just change his system and that's it. He lose all his wealth and his thing and everything like that. So like,
but you just there in the background just mumbling, and these new millennials and the social media.
Before time and never fight, So it's like whatever.
Yeah. That was painful. That was painful to watch.
It was funny. I kind of wish it had been the Train Man because the Train Man is one of those characters that like people shit on, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I love the Train Man. He's awesome.
A cool character. Yeah.
Like if the Train Man, like I feel like honestly, if I had to do like a rewrite on this script, I was like, well, we can't get Weaving back, so let's just drop Smith altogether. Let's not have the Merovingian, and instead we just collapse both those characters into the Train Man. There.
Right.
Now,
the whole time the Merovingian was on screen, I was like, why has nobody shot him in the head yet? Why has nobody shot him in the head?
The thing with
he's
him is
right there.
Like to me, he became like the train man in a previous cycle was wealthy and well-to-do, and then the Matrix changed and like his life is a mess now and he's barely struggling. So that's what happened to the Merovingian. It's a cycle.
True.
Okay. And I'm gonna go.
If you say so.
I'm gonna agree with Ricardo on that one because when you look at it in the last of the trilogy, where my boy stands up and says in the train, he says, "Down here, I am God."
Exactly. Right.
And his interactions with the then Merovingian, who had the club and all this kind of stuff. If we're talking about the fact that there have been 6 iterations, there have been 6 versions of the Matrix, whoever becomes the new Merovingian or whoever becomes the new leader after they've reached their usefulness and the Matrix is rebooted, they either become an exile, go mad, or just get deleted. So for me, having the Merovingian being angry man who screams at the moon, griping about all the things that, for whatever better way of putting it, boomers tend to gripe about social media and all how it's affecting the young people, and you all wreck everything, and there's no music involved, and blah 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 blah. Is par for the course because he has legitimately become the new train man. Now they could have explained that a little bit more, but just seeing him go around, I immediately caught on to it when he appeared.
Yeah.
Well,
10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. It's a real shame that you couldn't flesh this out and have it, explain a little better. It needed to breed. I think it's a good story.
Yeah, I really didn't like that scene where they met back the Merovingian. I think it was just stupid. Yeah.
It was just dumb fan service in my opinion, right?
Well, like my I don't know. When I say that like the second, third act kind of had pacing problems, that scene was kind of what I was thinking of. Because like I was really vibing with the film, and then like they got to Io and things started to slow down. But then there's that bit where they go back to the Matrix and they have that weird little fight with the people who look like those exiles look like they escaped off the set of Batman Forever or Batman and Robin, honestly. And like then we have that fight, and then they're back in the real world, and then they get scolded, and then other things happen, and then they're back in the Matrix again. And I'm like, you could have cut that middle section out. or you could have spread it. You could have taken any important information from that section and put it either before or after. But having them kind of like ping pong between the Matrix and not the Matrix kind of kills the pacing in particular. And like that was the scene I was thinking. Like when I criticize the pacing of this movie, that is the sequence. For instance, like that's the scene where the kind of weak fight choreography is at its worst for me. Like maybe the final fight on like the highway with like the swarm mode agents or whatever, but like I didn't like the fight choreography in that weird warehouse with the exiles was probably the weakest there.
Yeah, like I'm sorry. I mean, say what you want about Reloaded, but even that fight scene in the Merovingian's place, like I actually have that up as one of my favorite fight sequences in the whole trilogy, right? Speaking of which, too, Sati. I mean, it was obvious. Yes, Priyanka Chopra Jonas. Of course, she's Sati. Duh, right? What I do appreciate seeing her in this, seeing her, right? And her kind of explaining what happened to her parents. I really, really dug that. I felt like they just had it here for exposition because she just had to lay out this sort of Ocean's 11-esque plan about, we have to sneak in and we have to kind of help revive, what's her face? Trinity, from her, I was gonna say vegetative state, right? But her in the pod, right? Basically that, right? Okay, fine. We're doing all this thing that's interesting, right? But that what leads me to issue here with in terms of just giving us something new, something like visually, something dynamic, right? Okay, Morpheus has this way that in the real world he has this sort of digitized version of himself. He looks like these sort of metallic balls, okay? But this is nothing new. I've seen this before. I've seen a version of this in friggin' Terminator Genesis, right? So that's I'm sorry. I saw that. With the whole thing with Connor, right? With John Connor, right? We saw something like that, right?
Right.
So
but we saw that in Revolutions as well, when the machines had to put together their face when they were talking to Neo at the end.
Right.
So they just basically.
It's like right, exactly.
You mean the Deus Ex Machina, the literal thing that is actually called the Deus Ex.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I know, right? Which I criticize when I talk about revolutions, right? But
I still love that bit. I still love the fact that it is literally called the Deus Ex Machina because I'm like, look, you cannot complain that they're trying to hide it.
And
like
the
they
cat
are
is called Deja Vu.
They
Terrible.
are the cat's called
Deja Vu.
Yeah.
Like
and the company,
analyst's cat is called Deja Vu.
No, but again,
and the company is called Deus Machina.
Exactly.
But I love that. I was like, yes.
But that's by design in the story, because if he say the cat is Deja Vu, he would escape from the Matrix by seeing that. So he has to say, hey, if I say Deja Vu, that is a name. That is another thing that a lot of people don't get, because it's a fake system and the system can process what things would play out like in real life. A fake system would manifest like that. Here's one. Remember when Smith and Neo was fighting in the second film? And Neo grabs Smith and fires him into a bunch of other Smiths, and you literally hear bowling pins clash. Like, that's a diegetic song, That's in the Matrix.
Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm.
Neo heard that. Why? Because the Matrix can't process that kind of weird bullshit. From the Matrix perspective and the calculations, it's like, wait, a former agent cloning himself and eating other people, and then the anomaly throw them into that. How that gonna song? It have no process. So it just come up with nonsense now. Well, a bowling ball and pins. That's the sound you hear when objects clash into a heavy object clash into a bunch of light objects. That's why I see a lot of that. It's the same thing. It's just it's programming within programming, and that's why I think they wrote it. That's why I think that all of this is by intention. Sorry, guys want to say it is bad mistakes. No, this is by intention. It's like other films do this a lot. It's RoboCop. It's it's the RoboCop ads, right? It's that. It's the parody tragedy turned to farce. I saw seeing a lot of that. Like, am I the only one seeing this? I don't know. Like.
No, I mean, I get it.
Exactly.
Am I the only one?
I'm not buying it. Sorry. I don't buy those bullet pins at all, man. Sorry.
Yeah. And also, just for me, I mean, I could be wrong with this though, but I didn't find myself particularly wowed by the visual effects. Cinematography, I thought was pretty solid though, especially in the first act. The use of blue that he used, especially like
a lot of great color.
Lots of great usage of color here, right?
It's a real shame. It's a real shame they couldn't get back Weaving, because like it had a great cut with Weaving in the building, like Smith, and it cut to Weaving in the first film, and cuts back in the green, from the green to the green hue to the I forget which color hue they use. I think it's red, slightly redder.
Right.
I thought that was a great like little call, but it's a shame, real shame they couldn't get back Weaving.
Yeah, boy. I know, right? Yeah. I mean, Hugo Weaving, you will be missed in this series, but right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
was he offered the chance to come back and just turned it down, or what happened there? Does anyone know?
I
think he's just so deep into theater. He's like, no, this is beyond me. I'm not doing this Matrix thing again.
He's a guy who will say yes to I mean, I don't know who will say no to Lana, unless you're like a big philosopher like John Baudrillard, who did say no to Lana and Lily Wachowski back when the second film was made. It's that I think he would have said yes, because I think this fella was cut out or written out entirely. Lawrence Fishburne. And what they did with him, right? But I don't know.
Right. Yeah, as far as visual effects go, they were fine, but they just didn't blow me away. They didn't remind me of how I mean, not to say like the original trilogy had some like extraordinary visual effects, but for its time it was spectacular, right? Here I didn't really feel it. Particularly the moments where you see, where you see the machines themselves, and I mean, where they just like hurting the humans and all that kind of stuff. It looks very reminiscent of like what we saw in the first movie, right? But it just felt like a copy and paste kind of thing, right? Even right down to the machines themselves, just didn't have that fearsome look to them, right? No one of them was used basically to pluck Neo out, and they were by design, by the crew members, they were saving them basically, right? But even that itself, just that design of the Squiddy didn't really look all that amazing to me. Even right down to this new weird kind of machine, sort of a hybrid of a Mothra kind of thing. Like, it just reminds me of like one of those like Japanese, monsters, but they just kind of incorporate it as a machine. I think it's Sati's own. No, not Sati's. It's one of the crew members. They have that, right? I was just watching that and I was like, is this Star Wars? Is this some kind of like, what this is looking like some kind of thing for kids? Like, it looked like it's just designed to sell toys, and even worse now because you have like this miniature like machine thing that's helping the pilot of the ship itself. I like, whoa, we in Last Jedi here? Is this one of those bird creature things from Last Jedi? Like, what are we doing here? And they didn't really add anything. It's just like, oh, this looks so cute, but bro, like, it's Resurrections, is the Matrix. It's supposed to be dark. What's all this light PG shit? Like, come on, right? And then just to close it off, as far as action goes, though, like, yes, I keep saying I like that opening action sequence, right? Especially with Playout, right? But where I really felt they just dropped the ball, boy, was in that finale, boy. Okay, so for one thing, all right, I understand you want to give a really extraordinary moment, right? But oh gosh, man, you're gonna have people in the same area, right, be zombified by something called the Swarm, which was invented for this show, right? And it's all this set up too. It's like you just see this couple sleeping, and this one guy wakes up, and you just see his eyes turn green, and he just says, "Oh, he jumps off a window." And he falls, and you're thinking, all right, when he explodes and when he hits the ground, something's gonna happen. No, he just turns into Matrix code. So like, what? Okay, like, and first thing that came to mind when I saw this, right? To be honest, I was thinking about Fate of the Furious. Remember that moment with the cars that they were just falling from like this big car shop thing, and it was
the zombified cars. The
zombified cars. That's what I was thinking about now. So I was wondering, is Lana's way of doing commentary on just these over-the-top, audacious, ridiculous action scenes like you see in like a Fast and Furious movie, but it's just people dropping, and then you have this sort of Walking Dead, well, not even Walking Dead, sorry, more like, 20 Days Later kind of moments. So you have all these zombified people running and trying to attack, Neo and Trinity. I'll talk about Trinity when we wrap up. But it just didn't do anything for me, and it's just Neo just doing all this force field powers. Boom, boom, boom. Look at me, force field. Ooh. I was like, does it though? I gave it worse though when it's dawn now, and they just have a couple of helicopters and they're shooting missiles and Neo's deflecting them, and it's like, well, all right, well. That does it, okay. And the whole gist is, can Neo fly? Can Neo fly? Can Neo fly? But I don't know, just something about that those final action sequences just didn't work for me though. I will say though, leading up to it, the whole the whole reveal of the analyst being what he is. I do kind of have to disagree with you, CC, in terms of the high frame rate. I felt it was overused here. They kind of make it work a little bit where he's moving in normal speed, but everything else is moving slow. I get that, but as soon as they use that high frame rate, I was just like, ugh. This looked kind of cheap. This looked kind of. It's like, oh well, sorry to quote Michael here now. It looked kind of student filmy. Like, okay, we have to show this in a dynamic way, but we don't have the money, so let's try a optical effect. How about high frame rate, right? But the whole slowing down stuff, with the bullet in particular, that really worked for me, right? And how he comes in now, especially when Trinity comes in, that was really great as well, right? In terms of the analysts. I didn't particularly like how how Smith was gotten rid of. I felt they could have done that way better. It was just like, oh, by the way, yeah, boom, that's it, the end.
Yeah, what happened to Smith again?
That's the thing. He just gets shot and that was it. He turns the code and that's it.
He just he was
he developed feelings for Neo.
No, he was connected. Yeah.
I have long since said this.
Yeah, it was just underwhelming, man. I mean, it's
again.
I understand. We don't have to do the whole big rivalry thing again, but it's Smith. Y'all decided to bring him back, so why just off him just like that? Boom. Well, we're done with you. It's about me.
They didn't kill him.
Comes back in the end.
Yeah, he was apparently he was just possessing somebody, and then he dicks off.
Yeah, he could because he could
move
through the code. Because remember in the last Matrix, he literally occupied everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So he has full access to the code, wherever it is now. He could be anyone, as he says now. Again, it's a cop out to explain away why he's not Hugo even, but I still whatever.
Right. Yeah. And last thing on my end, right? Trinity. Loved seeing her back. I love how they set it up with, and perfect choice of the whole coffee shop thing. Cause like, oh yeah, I see you in this coffee shop by yourself. Hey, my name is Tiffany, and this is that was a nice reveal with her having a husband and 2 sons, I believe it was, right? That was cool. That was cool, right? And just the story, which I should have seen coming, but I was just kind of watching the show play out for itself, right? Where it's like, oh, we need Trinity to kind of come into realization that that she is Trinity at the end of the day, right? And not Tiffany, right?
Right.
The whole idea, the whole backstory that the analyst gives in terms of why they're important. That is one that I have to kind of rethink because I really do want to rewatch this, right? But because honestly, I just could at first I was just like, all right, they're really that important though. But then
no. Well, that's the thing.
And how they were important in the trilogy.
I thought that was a good explanation. So how I think of the analyst, I think of him as, remember Jared Leto's character in Blade Runner, the new one.
Which I love, by the way. I know some people.
I kind of think of him like that. He's clearly not as good as the original, as the architect, and he clearly, he needed a shortcut. He clearly do a shortcut, and he, in my opinion, his version of the Matrix is clearly inferior because instead of letting the Matrix play out naturally and get into that, what happens is that they're suffering from resources, so they need to pull as much energy from you as possible, and so they say he just straight up take the anomaly back. Instead of waiting for another anomaly to show up naturally, according to the original design, he just wanted to do a bullshit shortcut and then take the anomaly back because they needed as much energy as possible. And they say that. He said, oh, well, I need to put in a space of horror and gaslighting, and you're close to getting free, but not really. But that's the best way. And they do that. It's a big conceit of capitalism. Clearly, there's a lot of it's capitalism stuff, right? But yeah, I love what they do with that in terms of that's it, and that was the explanation. That was it. He's not as good as a designer. He just utterly impatient, and he just kind of fucking it up because Neo keep escaping, and he had to do all of this rigmarole to make it work. And the only reason that is keep him there is because of Trinity. Right, so and what they reveal and what they do with Trinity at the end make perfect sense to me because the code just bleeding in and out now. He just keep fucking up the code. And she say that in the end, and it's like, well, if you left things as is, it would have been better off for you, but he was too greedy. And we kind of glad that he did that because now we are the power now. I like that. Great.
Right.
What I really like about the analyst is that the analyst feels like as a villain, feels as petty as Smith, but as God complexy as the architect, which is what I really like about him. And what I like is that he's so again, it reminds me of how you get all these algorithms on social media and all these websites that feel weirdly invasive and personal. Like that whole phenomenon where you like, even you talk about
TikTok.
Something, and then all of a sudden on Facebook, like you're saying like, oh man, my back is killing me, I need to get a new mattress. And then like Facebook starts giving you like ads for like local mattress places in your area. That kind, like it feels, the analyst feels like that level of like creepy and invasive. And I love that, like, especially like having him as an analyst is also brilliant because like this is one of the areas which I think the movie is like very, very personal, because I'm watching this and I'm watching the way that like not like an actual good effective analyst. He does a lot of like telling Neo what he's feeling and doing. And I'm like, man, Lana Wachowski had a really shitty analyst at one point and is like working some of that crap out, because like there's a lot of like the really, like, I don't know if you've ever had the experience of having like a really bad like therapist who does a lot of time telling you how you feel rather than like exploring what you actually feel. And like that is where the analyst fits.
I think they did that really well of mental health and the problem of mental health, because they do the whole premise of gaslighting so well now. And like, a lot of people in the mental health industry are bad at their jobs, and they gaslight people instead of like actually, you know, getting people out of the space, and especially with the transgender community. That's a whole thing, right? Yeah, so yeah, I love all of that. I find it's a very auteur film. Like it works.
It is in a sense, right? And I also should mention, as you brought up that, I actually dug that whole the therapy session that you see with with the analyst. We don't know when we didn't know he was that character, right? That therapy session with him and Thomas, right? Like I actually appreciate that. I love the dialogue that Neil gives here, right? Yes. But as far as Trinity goes, right? So, you know, the whole reveal that yes, she could fly too. That was pretty interesting as well, right? What I did not appreciate though was that visual callback to Neo holding Morpheus's hand. You know what I mean? Well, you know, Trinity was swinging him and the helicopter stuff in the first movie, right? Because they literally played the same goddamn music from that moment. And you know the way how they framed it's just like, oh well, I'm holding you, and I'm almost like I'm suspended air by this wire as well too, or rope, whatever it is. And I was just like, all right, but oh gosh, we have to do these references and callbacks again. You know what I mean? So last thing though, so I do like, you know, where they come back together. It's like, you know, reunited and feel so good, right? And you know they come to the architect, right, to the analyst and talking about, oh, we're gonna change the world and blah blah blah, right? So reference to like how the first movie ends, right? And then, sorry for being a nitpicker, but literally do a remake of Rage Against the Machine's Wake Up.
I hated that.
Literally the same moment with them flying past the camera. And I was just like, oh, good. And I hate this version of it. No disrespect to the singer. I'm like, why are we doing this shit? Why are we doing this? It lacks the punch that the first movie had. Exactly. Where it's like, oh, now that my eyes are open now, all right, the whole world is my playground now, so I could do anything. And that's when, you know, the song Wake Up comes in now.
Problem they had in the first one all over again.
Yeah. It just feels like it just feels like, you know, oh, we trying to pay tribute to it though, but it just felt half-assed in my opinion. I'm sorry, just that last moment and just that song, the version of the song was just egregious in my opinion. But that was a letdown.
I hated that. Like the lead singer, just to jump on that nitpick, the lead singer of who is singing the cover of Wake Up is like, her voice doesn't, if it's a he or a she, that voice does not have the same amount of aggression that Zach De La Rocha of Rage Against the Machine has.
Yes.
It doesn't have that
recorded in the 90s with the anti-culture, everything. You needed the 90s behind it.
Yeah, it doesn't have that kind of aggression. It's like, it's kind of mellow. It's a mellowish voice. It's like, okay, I don't feel
it would have been worse. It would have been worse if she had ended it with the "How long? Not long, because what you reap is what you sow." It would have sounded horrible.
Yes. I didn't sit through that. Like as soon as I heard the Rage Against the Machine cover, I was like, nah, I Xing this off right now. I'm not sitting around to watch the credits.
Well, they do a post-credit scene. It's short.
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't care for it though.
It's all right. Again, it just tells this joke a little too much. I find it already told that joke in the opening sequence. So, but he decided to double down on the joke. And again, the joke is catering to cynical people now, like cynicism, because like what that guy says at the end is like, geez, yeah, that's clearly not what it is about, and trying to be opposite to that. Now. Like Lana's message is the exact opposite of that. But the whole point is to hammer home cynical assholes is kind of running the roost, so whatever.
Speaking of the jokes, there's a joke in the beginning when Neo's assistant, Jude, I think is his name.
Right.
Jude, when he is in the beginning and Trinity first walks into the coffee shop and she's like, what an effing MILF. I was like, nah, no. I was gonna X off this movie right there.
Is an internet fanboy. Like again, it's a character.
The entire tone was wrong, Dread.
Yeah, it's a caricature.
Tone was wrong.
People.
My only
first
critique
it's tragedy, then it's farce.
My only critique of that bit specifically, and this is just like my screenwriter brain, is that like the kind of person who's going to say MILF is not going to say effing. Like they're going to say the actual word, right? And I was like, which I don't think he did. I think he actually said effing in the thing, if I remember correctly.
No, he did. How I interpreted it though was
because I was like, what?
And I was like, no. The kind of person
it's rated R. The movie's actually rated R. Why not?
It is rated R.
No, well, here's the thing. As you brought up that, how I felt was, is that it was Lana like not wanting to drop the F word at that point in time, right? But they actually drop it like twice in the movie, actually.
Quite a bit.
Film. So I was like, why not give it 3 times an R-rated film, right? You know, it's almost like, it was almost like a PG-13 kind of decision. Like, okay, well, I don't want him to say it now. Like maybe later on, and it will sound funny. You know what I mean? Because a character does say we're fucked, and you're supposed to laugh at it. But I was like, all right, that's funny. Okay. Well,
and then there's like this very obnoxious beep when he says fucked. And it's like they were trying to censor it.
Yes.
They were trying to censor it, and it's like, no.
I heard that.
The only joke in this movie that I am okay with is that yellow suit Morpheus was wearing, because next year Halloween they're gonna be hot.
Hell yeah! That was amazing.
My boy, you gone find Curious George later, right?
Oh my god!
No, my thought was it was like, wow, Morpheus just went full pimp. Like this is like
I loved it. I thought that was
Listen. What was Neo supposed to think when a guy like that come out from like in a stall dress?
That's a great joke.
A guy like that walked out of the stall and said, "Here, take this pill." Like,
yeah. I cried laughing at it. When that scene came up, I died, and I was like, you know what? I'll give this joke a pass. I'm okay with this because I was full of.
Because he's like, kind of like, if you think about it, like the original Morpheus, everybody used to make that joke back in the days. Wait, you're getting some pills from a black guy in a stormy house somewhere? Like that was a joke back then, and they play with it. So, yeah, makes sense. It's like red pill, blue pill. No, I don't want to be that. And even when he took the pill, he got high for a while.
Yeah, he did.
Exactly.
And he's like trying to get his identity and stuff, and it's like kind of funny and quirky. So I didn't mind Morpheus being kind of loose, because it had times that Morpheus character was being kind of goofy, and I actually really liked it because it made sense in the context of what he came out from now. And he's kind of like this glitchy creation of Neo. But the rest of them, I'm not okay with. And I actually, as much as like the analysts have, there's some cool aspects to the analyst. His what's his name again? Neil
Patrick Harris.
Neil Patrick Harris.
Right. Yeah. I really could not focus on the movie when he started to act like zany.
Is them
like,
you should not scenery a little too much.
Yeah, I like got this sort of, like I completely jumped out the movie for him, and when the Merovingian was gone, I'm like when the Merovingian was like stop looking like a homeless guy, I was like, I can't take this movie serious.
I know, and that's the problem with the show, though. Is like you're kind of wondering, should I really take this seriously, though? Because I know it's supposed to connect with, it's supposed to be a continuation of what we saw before, right? But should I really take this seriously, though, given all this meta stuff in it? You know what I mean? But one thing, though, this I keep saying last thing, right, before I get to rating, right? I just felt like, like I'm a follow-up person. Like, at least, we could have seen what happened to Morpheus, because I felt like after he does his whole revival thing of Trinity. I could be wrong, maybe if I watched it over, I'll see. I felt like, he was just like kind of pushed aside, and it was just all about Trinity and Neo and them doing what they had to do, you know what I mean? Like, so you didn't really see, what happened to him, or Bugs, or even Niobe as well too, even the people in the crew as well, like you know what I mean? Is their fight still gonna continue? How things are going to change now that Neo and Trinity are back together, I don't know. I guess we'll see in the sequel, right? So, what I was just saying, I'll just give the rating one time. I'm gonna give this a strong 2.5 out of 5. Boy, see this if you want to. If you really, really insist on seeing it, though, I would say take your time. Like, don't rush into it unless you're like really curious to see what the big deal is. I do see this having like cult classic value on the long run. Like, people are gonna go back to this and be like, wow, this was like the first, or probably one of the few times that somebody followed up on such an impactful trilogy with this meta commentary and all these things. Yeah, and fans are gonna like really gravitate to it, like real diehard fans, and you'll see videos 5-10 years from now talking about why this is such a superior sequel compared to Reloaded and Revolutions, right? That being said, though, I find that it relied too much on meta. I find it relied too much on nostalgia. I felt like, and as a result, though, it just didn't feel as inspired as all that. I felt like the action scenes just had no oomph to it, no impact to it, right? I remember this was a series practically based on delivering just over-the-top and grandiose action scenes, right? I mean, like I said, nobody ever saw the Burly Brawl before. And it's funny that literally a year later, the great Stephen Chow, parodied this in the great Kung Fu Hustle. Like, and I always made the joke that, like, all the Wachowskis got, oh, nobody gonna copy this. Nah. And then Kung Fu Hustle comes like, yeah, bitch, I do it. So I love that, right? Yeah, no, that's how I felt. It's like, yeah, bitch, I gotta do that trick. It's awesome, right? But yeah, I mean, I felt like for a franchise that is essentially, about action, the action scenes themselves just felt kind of blah. They just felt kind of uninspired, right? Even the visual effects just kind of were bland, uninspired to me. I forgot to mention there's actually a moment involving Sati looking at this sort of wishing well kind of thing, and she just seeing things play out. Like, the backgrounds in that in particular, I felt looked really like fake though. Like, I know it's supposed to be artificial. I guess that's the point. That's the word I should use. But it just came off a little too, too clean, too polished. I understand it's not meant to be like the other films where they're all grimy and dirty and dark, but still, it just had this kind of sheen to it that just didn't work, you know what I mean? But I do see myself rewatching this, maybe months from now, I guess. I'm not going to rush into this as soon as, right? But I don't know, I just kind of nonplussed by it as a whole, man. Like, I want to like it for its, meta commentary and, it, trying to one-up itself and whatnot. But I just felt like, just like the nostalgia films that we kind of critique these days, it was just, the same thing all over again. Just, with Matrix and just more philosophy and more commentary on, our times, you know what I mean? But it's not trash, and I myself didn't feel like I was wasting my time, but I did come out of this admittedly disappointed, right? So that's just me. Michael, final thoughts and rating.
So my last thoughts is, well, first of all, I'll start with the just some appreciation for what Lana was able to do, because as much as I am a fan of the original trilogy and everything, I'm not so stiff that I can't understand, from an author's perspective, that things should also be allowed to change based on the artist.
Right.
And I do appreciate that, like, the style is different. A lot of things are different. And I don't want to over-marry myself to, this not looking like the original Star Wars, so I vex, right? But at the same time, I felt like a balance was still required. And she went a little too far with some of it. And that was where I got lost from the movie, because there's a lot of good stuff. I mean, you guys really covered a lot of the points, right? A lot of the stuff that's really good with it. But sadly, it's just those other elements. Like, the comedy was a big no for me. I was on board for some of it, not for all of it. The meta thing, like Matt said, I'm on Matthew's side with the meta stuff. They went a little too far to the point where I was like derealizing out of the movie when there was again Warner Brothers and all this stuff. I was like, okay, y'all going real far here. it was a little touch too much for me. I miss the very carefully, almost handcrafted visual style of the old ones with the kung fu, especially. It kind of harkened back to so much of those old, really great, refined westerns and kung fu movies from the olden days. I felt like that was too much of a hallmark in the franchise to abandon completely. For something more contemporary and kind of dull. So for me, like my initial point going into it will always be a marble for me. There's some things in it I really absolutely can't stand, but there's a lot of things I appreciate, and I will need time to figure out where it will sit with me in terms of the 4 movies that exist, like in terms of my favorites to not so favorite. I can't really say right now because like Matt said, I would probably watch it again in a couple of weeks later down the road just to see how I feel about it. But for me, like I would give it right now, I would say I can't go further than maybe a 5 or 6 out of 10 because of some of them transgressions that I just can't get over. And one of them especially was that analyst stuff and the monologuing and all that stuff. It was just too goofy for me. But overall, I wasn't mad at it when I watched it. I didn't feel like I wasted my time. I was still a lot of Matrix in there. And Keanu, for what it's worth, he more or less had a consistent performance as Neo. Like I didn't feel like I was worried that he was just going to be John Wick in Matrix. But somehow he managed to, I don't know if you rewatched the old movies or what he did, but I did feel like that was Neo, which is something I was kind of worried about, right? Because you're doing John Wick back to back now at this point. I think that basically paying all his bills. So yeah, I would say in closing, I would say about a 5, maybe a 6 out of 10.
All right. Tracy, last words if you want to throw in a spoiler too, and Return.
I'll just give you. Hold on a second. I'll just give you a few of the thoughts that I had scribbled down. I kind of really dug the Smith Tom, as he called him, the Smith Tom dynamic. For me, it was kind of and I'm not really much of a shipper or anything like that, but it was kind of this is my boyfriend's boyfriend, because there was a vibe there with them, and I was like, I like that. Sati for me felt like she should have been played out a little bit more because clearly she is the new Oracle post that whole Smith invasion of her.
I was just going to say that. That she should have been the Oracle.
That's basically who she was. Because I mean, you watch how, and I'm going to use the word groom. But you watch how the Oracle was grooming her when her parents went missing, and she's there, she's showing how to do the cookies, and we all know the hilarity of the cookies and what that means, and even the idea of the cat and her post, all the mess that happened and everything like that. I envisioned that she would have been being groomed, that if something happens, because we already know that the Oracle, when she made decisions, there were consequences, and that's how they explained the change of actress and the change of face.
Right.
You would have the idea for me would have been that, okay, if there is something that is, let's say tomorrow morning, the Oracle as we know it no longer exists or can't be here, that Sati would have been it, and that would have been cool. So there are things about that, that I felt like could have been stretched a little bit more. There is a line in here, I think it's Morpheus. No, it's either Morpheus or the analyst. He says, you don't give a shit about facts, it's all about fiction. And that, he's kind of explaining.
The analyst,
the whole reality. I, for one, am one of those people, I very much liked the analyst, because he's one part tech boy, the technical boy, American Gods. So he's one part technical boy, and CC, you're right. He does have that God complex. So how I looked at it is, because this is the rise of the new gods, and so you have, because as much as I love the architect, the real hero, so to speak, of the machine world should have been the Oracle, because he himself said that his mind was wrapped up in mathematics and logics and stuff, that he couldn't until she came up with the idea of giving people the choice and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So when the analyst comes in and starts explaining, look, listen, this is how I'm going to operate things, and this is how it is, and this is how my matrix is, I'm like, okay, so with every generation, every iteration, every reincarnation of the scene, there is like a new leader, a new god, a new whatever, somebody who takes the role. And so the architect is gone with his, KFC beard, and Colonel Sanders. And now, we have the young, relatively dashing Neil Patrick Harris with his fur optical shades. Glasses, sorry. And so I kind of like that. There were, like I said, for me, parts of the beginning really felt a little bit annoying. There were some quotes that I really like. I have here: quietly yearning for what you're living your life, quietly yearning for what you don't have and fearing losing what you do have or what you do.
Right.
And that is legitimately where we are as a people. I mean, half of us want to be like, I'm going to quit my job and do exactly what I really want to do out of this life. And at the same point in time, that doesn't make any sense. You're fearful of doing things and losing shit. There was, okay, I'll say this. The relationship between General Niobe and, I can't even remember her name, but you get the idea that they may have been a little bit more than friends. They may have actually been, lovers or something.
Right, yeah. She's like 90 years old. She probably moved. And General Hardas, I forget his name.
Yeah. I could never remember his name either.
Locke, I think is his name. Yeah.
I felt like they could have explored that a little bit more. Like they could have explored that.
Like in a 6 to 8 episode run.
Okay, right. I will grant you with that in terms of the miniseries, because there's a thing that happened in the end of Rise of Skywalker that to this day still pisses me off. It is the 10 seconds. It is literally 10 seconds. They've all saved the day, and the Doctor, who we got like a 5-minute thing in The Last Jedi, she turns to her lover, who was a mechanic or something like that, and kisses her in all of 6 seconds. And then Disney, well, not even Disney, it was JJ, comes out and talks about, we have our first on-screen romance, on-screen lesbian romance. I was like, that's not how you do representation. I think they cut that in China. Well, of course they did.
Now y'all reminded me of Rise of Skywalker. Now I'm pissed off.
That shit really annoyed me, because when you start talking about representation, but anyway, that's another conversation. So it didn't feel like that. But the fact that it reminded me, like my brain immediately went then for like, you could have explained that a little bit more. That's a height scene. I do have the last note that I have here on my document was save the Trinity, save the world, a la Heroes, the cheerleader. And so for me, that was nice. I liked the idea of giving Trinity a family that she has to choose between and the idea of the swarm mode. I felt like that was a beautiful way of saying, okay, it's not just a possession where a trans, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, it's not just a random possession where the whole head and body and everything turns into an agent, but there is a swarm mode, and I actually quite like it. I'm going to give this 7.5 out of 10. I had fun. I could even tell you right now the order of it. It's 1, 3, 4, and 2. Which is hilarious because 2 bleeds into 3, and that's how it works. But if I had to go, it would be 1, 3, 4, and 2. But yeah, 7.5 out of 10. Yeah, that works for me. I have it. I will obviously go back to HBO Max and watch it again. And I have the soundtrack, so that's always going to be fun. That's the other part about it. I feel like this could have been a good opportunity. Zach did this thing where when he did his 6-hour movie, he brought back who he was doing to
6 hours. Actually, it was 4 hours.
Was it 4 hours? Really?
It was 9-hour movie. It's a 9-hour movie.
It felt so long.
His 30-hour movie, he actually brought back the guy who's blanking me right now, but he brought back the guy. So I would have loved to have had Juno Reactor come back and actually do the score. There's a famous dude, somebody else who did the score, which is a very nice score, and I have it, and it's cool. But it would have been fun to bring back the original composers onto it. I don't know what that cut-up scene would have been like. But yeah, 7.5 out of 10. That's it for me.
All right, and since Ricardo and Cece gave away their ratings already, Daniel.
Wow, boy,
shame
wow.
on you, shame on you.
Wow.
I'm sorry. All right, Daniel, you close the show off. Final thoughts, rating, if you want to.
I think I've seen one of the ships from Independence Day outside there. yeah. All the shade.
Oh my gosh.
Tis the season for shade.
Yeah, so Daniel, final thoughts, rating, throw in a spoiler too if you need to.
Okay, where do I start with this? The humor is an issue for me. Like that Matrix humor is not working. And as Michael said earlier, like the whole meta thing kind of went overboard in the first act for me. Is like I really wasn't vibing with this at all. So it's like the action scenes were not particularly inspired. But I will say it was a missed opportunity for Sati to be the Oracle, and that was my whole idea. That was my whole idea for like a Matrix spin-off. Because she's an exiled program, and because she didn't have a purpose. What an opportunity for like a character like that to really have her own arc and become the Oracle. Overall, I can't say that I liked this movie. I'll say that I'll give it like a 4 to 5 out of 10. That's my rating.
All right, wow, that's pretty low though, but I understand. So yes, folks, as you've picked up here, this is a very divisive film. Some people will love it and some people will loathe it, right? But
also known as a Wachowski movie.
You know what I mean?
For real, eh?
Yeah, boy. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's the auto theory, and it still exists, right? So, yeah.
Also, when I was offline, when y'all mentioned Smith and Neo's relationship as a kind of a homoerotic kind of thing, like
it always was.
It was. I didn't catch that. It
always was.
I didn't catch that in the previous movies, though.
It definitely always was.
I'm agreeing. Yeah.
This one turned it up. At one point when I was watching them have their whole dialogue, I was like, this seems sexually charged.
I have such dreams.
Neo went inside him, man.
Like, am I saying the actor? Like, what? Like, what's going on here? And Tom, stop it, Tom.
But in the early films, it always kind of was. I mean, as I say, in the first film, Neo went inside him. So
and broke him out from his systematic control and all that shit. Like I say, I am personally not a shipper, but there have been a few people in pop culture, but that I look at and be like, yeah, that's a couple. But when I listen to that whole, I have such dreams
in the original trilogy. Morpheus was real loving off of Neo like constantly.
No, but in the first film, the big catch of the first film that Smith was rebelling as well. That he picked up, hey, I kind of don't want to do this anymore, kind of thing now. So he was like super obsessed with Neo to break free now. He's like, oh, well, I have a window out and this person, I have to design myself around this person entirely and so on and so forth. So when the sequels come around, it's like, yeah, we're connected. We're connected.
You sensed our connection, you and I.
Ideas, like when you think about and that's the problem I have with this movie. Like, the ideas are there, but the way they do it, like, these things so sensitive with audiences, you have to find the right way to make it work. And right. I think that's why I'm divided about the movie, because there are a lot of really good ideas here, but it's just the way that they executed it now was my issue.
As I said, 6 to 8 episodes would have sort all of this out, to be honest.
Yeah, easily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, so The Matrix, even though this was long before, I talked about the idea of the lens, right? And what lens you pull from this to make it work. A lot of people, the original Matrix was across the board. That's why it works so well, and good kung fu, right? But the lens is what shaped the sequels, and this one is all lens. Like, if you read it from a specific lens, especially a trans lens, a lot of it, is great and works. And well, I'm not sure if transgender people really doubling down to defend it and circling the wagons. Not sure, but yeah, the film works as it is. For me, why it works is I read it as just a colonial/new colonialist lens, where first is tragedy, then it's farce. The stuff will go on, and then it'll come back, and it'll come back in such an obvious and ridiculous sense, but it's the same evil and threat coming back. And even if the good guys, even if the bad guys has rallied, it don't mean you're a failure. And that's why I think this works so well for what it is. As I said, 68 episodes on HBO Max as a series run once per week would have served this better, right? It's pure format. I think it works as a failure as it is. I would have loved to see this just play out better, and it's really unfortunate. But look, the way how it ends like a kind of new reboot in a sense. Like the way how it ends, especially with Neo and Trinity. So it's still open for something like that, and I would love to see that, to be honest. That's just my last point.
I can't see me watching this anytime soon. I need this to marinate. I
think we all do. At least most of us do, man.
I'll agree with that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, guys, for those who listen to this, feel free to share your thoughts on, the Matrix Resurrections, particularly if you think it's a worthy follow-up to the previous 3 films. I think that's like the main question that people will be pondering on, right? Well, maybe not so much pondering on, as to whether this fits in the whole Matrix universe, right?